Yeah,
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Adrienne. I'm with Reston Library, and thank you for joining us for our inner voice from self-criticism to self-acceptance. And it's my pleasure to introduce Shabnam Curtis, who is an integral life coach and the leader of our workshop this evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Adrienne. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. It always makes me happy when I see people come in and they're curious. So hopefully our workshop tonight is helpful. I will try to get people's contribution. Please feel free to ask questions, share your thoughts, experience if you feel comfortable. Of course, we are recording, so it's going to be on YouTube in a way that you feel comfortable, but I would love us to have discussion about it. As Adrienne mentioned, I'm a certified integral coach, and I have one-on-one coaching sessions with people and also workshops like this. It's my passion, and I really enjoy to feel that really deep connection with people. So I hope you also feel that deep connection tonight. I'm going to share my screen. And you can come here and I can present here. Present, please. Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Okay, can everybody see my screen? No, that didn't work. I can't see my screen. Sorry, I'm playing with that.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Okay, I don't like it, but I had to remove all the pictures. So, but I really like to see people. Well, thank you. So tonight we are going to talk about our inner voice. The research study says that more than 50% of people have some inner voice, but what I believe, based on what I've learned and all the trainings that I've had for coaching, my understanding is our thoughts, whatever comes to our mind, there are inner voice that we all carry in different forms. A lot of times, maybe like my inner voice is in the form of it's not in a form of conversation with myself. It's in a form of like just thoughts coming and going. So it's very different for different people, but we can find it and we can communicate with it. We can bring awareness to it. We can be mindful about it to see what is coming to our mind and how we want to select what is good for us, what is proper. So tonight, talking about our inner voice, we want to see where does our inner voice come from? How can we change it to a constructive inner voice if we have the inner critical, the inner critic that can constantly badger us. A lot of us have it. It's very culturally. And then different types of inner voice that can be like come in the form of self-criticism or inner critic, and how we want to deal with it. And then steps of disengaging with that inner critic, and kind of like trying to change it to constructive inner voice or bring wisdom to it. And then I offer a couple of practices that hopefully it helps after this workshop when you want to review and reflect on what we talked about tonight. So what is our inner voice? It's like a lot of time, like I mentioned, it comes in it's like all these things that we are thinking about, but a lot of time it comes in as an inner critic. I would love to hear if anybody thinks that like they have this inner critic. You can unmute yourself and talk about it, or you can put it in the chat. But does anybody hear their inner voice, and is it in a form of inner critic? If anybody likes to share. Well, we are warming up. So let's see what I have here as examples. You know, like how many times we make a mistake and we say, oh gosh, I'm an idiot. Or I personally used to say, I'm really bad at math. So that's like an inner critic. You know, I even say it to myself or say it to other people. Or so many times when we are not accepted in a place, or when we even don't get an answer that we want to get, or we don't receive an answer that we want to receive, we think that like, oh, I did something wrong, I'm not good enough. Or in a way, like putting ourselves in a category and feeling like that's the whole me is, let's say, like I'm modern, or I'm traditional, or I'm conventional, or I'm post-conventional. We are much bigger than that. But a lot of time we inner talk to ourselves, and we shrink ourselves to a very small piece. But we are much bigger than that. And these inner talks are kind of like old habits that come back very quick. In a way, there are habits that we kind of like don't have control of them anymore. They just jump out. But tonight we are together to see if we actually can bring some mindfulness towards it, and see like if we can make any changes and if we can modify those inner thoughts, especially if they're unpleasant or negative. We can even like on our inner talk, we can with our inner talk, we can judge other people, right? Like he is a very lazy person. I personally believe, based on the neuroscience and based on all the new research, that we normally don't have a lazy person. There is a reason that person is not motivated to do things the way that the society expects the person to do it. There are so many different reasons for it. And how can we become more curious of these inner thoughts and these inner talks to see ourselves and other people differently? So where do they come from? Our inner voice is usually based on the mindsets and habits that have been created since our childhood. During our childhood, we are completely dependent on our parents and caregivers. And all we know is to survive. Although we are growing during our childhood, and we are growing to understand more complexity of life, but we are so dependent on our adult caregivers, and we want them to be there. If they are not there emotionally or physically, then we feel that the insecurity, and we need to survive. So we create a lot of patterns and mindsets that allow us to survive at the moment. But then when we become adults and we feel like, oh, I'm in charge of my own life, these habits stay with us, these patterns stay with us, and sadly, they become in charge of our life if we don't think about them, if we don't be mindful about them, if you're not aware of them. They are so so natural to us that we think this is it, but this is not it. We really can be mindful. We can capture the unpleasant thoughts and inner talks, and we can do something with it. So it's basically when we become adults, we start growing, and that's what we are trying to discover tonight. That, like, as an adult, how can I grow and change those survival patterns to growth patterns? And in order to do it, what do I need to create? What do I need to develop? How can I make those thoughts, those inner thoughts, those inner critics constructive? It's one way to have inner thoughts and inner talks. It's another way to have constructive inner talks. And what would be a constructive inner talks? It's as if, like, you are talking to a loved person, a loved one, with a lot of empathy and compassion, that, like, oh my God, I understand. This is very difficult. You're going through a very difficult situation. How could we actually talk to ourselves like that? And probably it sounds impossible to many of us, but it is possible. We can do it when we shift our approach towards who we are and how we connect to other people. One really important thing in shifting that approach is to become more curious. Instead of just accepting our inner talks, we can bring more curiosity. We can start questioning the thought. There are thousands of thoughts coming to our mind every day. There are research studies that suggest up to 75,000 thoughts per day. We experience it. So it's too many, especially with the information era that we live in. You know, we are just bombarded with information that stimulates our thoughts, that bring new thoughts to our mind. But we really need to be able to filter and accept the thoughts that are healthy for us, and put the other ones aside. So how do we do it? With curiosity, with basically asking question about what a thought provides to us. When a thought comes to my mind, there are questions I can ask. Where do you come from? What belief is behind you? What do you want me to do? How healthy you are for me? What are the consequences of this? And of course, you know, we can't do it with every thought of 75,000 thoughts, but the more we are mindful, especially when we are triggered during the day, the more we can practice and get, I don't want to use the word control, but manage our thoughts in a better way, to have more constructive and healthy thoughts chosen and selected for us. Basically, we want to become that nurturing self-parent for ourselves, to tell ourselves that, is this healthy for you? Is this something that would make you feel more comfortable in your skin? Is this something, is this thought something that allow you to grow and connect with life and other people in a better way? So those are the things that we can ask, especially when we feel like triggered. And that's another thing that we had other workshops about it. How do we learn we are triggered? How do we do body scan? We monitor ourselves a few times per day to see where we are in, not only in our mind and our body. And if we feel like we are triggered by some cause and there are unpleasant or powerful emotions in any way, we want to reflect on it with these questions, because those are based on mindsets and thoughts that came with it. A lot of inner talks are behind those powerful, unpleasant emotions. we basically want to establish that growth mindset for ourselves, to believe that we can grow, we can evolve. And that's why we are here, right? That's why we have this precious life to grow, to be more me, to be more ourselves, to become more ourselves, and contribute to life. And over time to observe how our values and strengths evolve. And how can we evolve them? It's basically through that curiosity and empathy that we invite to our inner thoughts, to our inner critic, that, oh, you know what? It's like, if I failed, it doesn't mean I'm a failure. It means that there are things that I need to learn more. So we can grow and bring constructive structure to our inner critic, or an inner talks. In a way, we want to grow not only to see our own uniqueness, we want to see other people's uniqueness. So instead of thinking that this person is lazy, this person doesn't know how to plan, we can see the differences between us. We can see that I am a person who is a planner, who can plan for next 3 months in details, but there are other people who they have a very different brain structure, and they are not comfortable with having everything planned in details. And it's like, it's very deep. If we go down deep to neuroscience, we see how different people have different brain structure, and how every brain, with all the patterns that we share in humanity, how every brain structure is very unique. Nowadays, we are learning a lot about diversity in, like, neurodiversity, neurodivergent people, people who are in the spectrum of autism, people who might be diagnosed with depression, anxiety, with ADHD, with ADD. So these people are only different than us. Or I'm not even saying us, because I'm personally, like, I was diagnosed with depression, and I'm not afraid of saying it, because when we know about our mental health, that's when we can actually pay attention to it and bring the mental health to our life. It doesn't matter what we are dealing with. It's the matter how we see it and how we want to deal with it. And that all basically starts with all those inner thoughts that come from our mindset. That's where we can really be constructive and kind to ourselves. And when we do that, then we can become constructive and kind to other people too, because we get to see the differences between people and how different people can think differently. I have other examples here, like people who communicate their stories differently. Introvert, extrovert is very fluid, but a person who at the moment is experiencing as an introverted person can communicate very differently. Sometimes they don't know how to even talk about it. There are people who are very extroverted at the moment under the circumstances, but they talk about everything, but they can't actually communicate their feelings. But there are people who can sit down, have emotional regulation by practices, and communicate their emotions. So we are very different, and we can see these differences and bring more constructive structure to our thoughts and our inner talks. Let me stop here. Inner critic that mimics other people's words. That's lovely, because, thank you. It's a lot of time, our inner critic is just based on, basically is a fear of other people's judgment, what other people is thinking about me, what other people are going to say. And our inner critic goes on that, like, oh, you are not a good person, you are not good enough, you can't do this. But it's mostly based on other people's behavior towards us. And we, instead of going inward, we just stay outside of us and allow other people and other thoughts and other people's inner critics to manage us. Yeah, thank you. So any question, any thoughts to share so far? I would love to hear from you too. If you feel comfortable, talk about it. If you feel comfortable, type it in the chat. What do you think about inner thoughts, inner critic? Oh, waiting to learn how to stop the cycle. Hopefully, yes, we are going to talk about it, and hopefully it helps tonight. But the very first step is, like we talked about, is really to believe that we can stop all that rumination. We can stop and change our inner thoughts to constructive by changing, by shifting the way that we look at the world, look at ourselves, and look at people around us. So here, go to the next slide, please. Now it jumped. Okay. So I hope this helps. It's like different types of inner voice based on a personality type model called Enneagram. We are going to have a workshop specifically for Enneagram, which is very different than like Myers-Briggs test and other personality types. It has levels of growth, and it explains how different people behave differently or think differently. And it also explains how we are more than our personality. We are not limited to this personality, the behavior that we have now. If we become curious, if we feel that empathy towards ourselves, we can definitely grow, we can bloom, we can unfold. So these are based on the Enneagram personality model. There are 9 types. And I just kind of like summarized it here to say how each type could have different types of inner critic dominant in our head. So we could feel like this is like type 1. We feel like everything should be right or wrong, and we know what is right and wrong. And you might feel like, well, yeah, I know what is wrong or right, but we can become very rigid in that right or wrong that we know. That's where we want to bring the curiosity. That's where we want to say, why do I think this is right? Especially when we get some feedback, when we think something is wrong, and newer generation, they come to us and they're like, no, you are not seeing all the aspects, all different aspects of this. So it's really important to bring some questions when we are faced with challenges in our right and wrongs. We don't know all the right and wrongs. And life is evolving, life is changing all the time. So curiosity can be very important here. And for those of us who think we know what is right, what is wrong, and I'm the expert of that, we experience a lot of anxiety with that, especially when someone does something that I think it's not right or it's wrong. So a little bit flexibility and curiosity to see what is behind what belief is behind that wrong or right can really help us here. It can help us shift that how we see life. Type 2 is a person who loves to help other people, and it's a very beautiful thing. But a lot of time, this is my dominant type. I personally learned that many times when I've been trying to help other people, I had a hidden agenda in myself because I wanted them to love me. It wasn't because I wanted to help them, because I wanted them to grow. That was part of it, but it wasn't the big part of it. The big part of it was, I want to show people how nice I am, so you can love me, you can you can accept me. So this agenda. And then it can also go a little far when people with this dominant characteristic or personality type can help people when people don't need the help. But it's with that little hidden agenda that I'm here to help other people. I'm here to sacrifice all my own needs. These are all our inner thoughts that, and eventually what happens, I feel like a victim. Oh, look at me. I'm the one who is sacrificing. I'm the one who is helping everybody, and no one is paying attention to my needs. And that's when curiosity can come in and like, did people need the help? Was my help genuine, or was it the help that I wanted to do in order to have other people just liking me? What was it behind it? And was it kind of like a transactional help, or was it a true help that someone asked me and I was there to help? Only one like me if I give. Would you mind to elaborate on that? We have a message, a thought.
Yeah.
Please.
No, it's just saying you have that where it talks about you want to gain respect or love. It's like they will only want you around or like you if you have something to give.
Yes.
And so you feel you always have to give. You can never take. You can never be yourself.
Right. Yeah. That is a great part, and the great part of the puzzle that you just put together. That it's not only me might be over across other people's boundaries and help when they don't need help. It's also people getting used to getting the help and not providing, not reciprocating it. It's very true. So in either case, the inner thoughts and inner critic is, look at me helping, feeling like a victim, that like I'm sacrificing and people are not reciprocating. And that's where curiosity can come in and say, okay, do you need to help them? Where are the boundaries that you want to put? What are the needs that you're sacrificing? And how do you want to meet those needs? Those are the type of constructive inner talks that we can bring into the play. I think, did I jump on the? No, okay. So another type 3, is many of us feel that if we perform at work or with our family members at home, if we perform very highly, we have a value. And if I don't perform, if I don't achieve, then I have no value. And that's when the inner critic comes in, that like, see, you don't provide enough. You're not good enough. You should work harder. You don't have any value if you don't do it. If you don't have all these degrees, or if you don't have all these connections in your life, or all different types of achievement that you can think of. We are beyond that. We can bring curiosity to say to ourselves constructively, why do I need all these achievements? Is it just to impress other people? And we never get that, it's never ending. It's like we impress for a second and then other things come in, and people's expectations and our expectations. So it's kind of like a loop. Or is it that I want to learn things, I want to achieve this thing because it helps me grow. It helps me to use more of my potential. So these are different ways of thinking about it. Do I want to accomplish and achieve in order to grow and to be a more useful person? Or do I feel accomplish and to grow, to achieve in order to impress other people or prove myself that I'm worthy. That's the self-critic. But when you bring it constructively, it's like, is this achievement bringing some more capacity, actualize more of my capacity? We do have one comment. Let me go to the comment. It's a trauma response where you are seeking validation through approval because you most likely had parents who got angry at your mistakes, which is ironically usually because they also had trauma going around. Yes, exactly. Very, very true. One thing that, thank you for bringing it up now. One thing that is very important to understand is for ourselves and for other people, if we have unprocessed traumas, if we are not mindful of our past traumas, and if we haven't made sense of it, then we definitely become more self-criticizing. And that's very true. We got traumatized by caregivers who were traumatized. And then they were traumatized. So it's like the intergenerational trauma that can really disconnect us from other people, put us in our own little cocoon, and make us feel insecure and unsafe towards other people and bring a lot of judgment. But once we are open to think about the trauma, to make sense of what happened, and to make sense of like the trauma happened to me, it wasn't because I was a bad person. You know, a lot of time I have people saying, but like this person raped me and why did I not go away? Well, at the moment of being attacked in any way, even in a nicest way, but it's like someone crossing our boundaries, we just go back to our biology, and biologically our body can go to fight, flight, or freeze. It's not psychological anymore. So it's very important to know those things about ourselves. And that also reduces a lot of self-criticism that like, oh, I could rescue my little brother there, or I could do something with my mother when my father was yelling, or, you know, you name it. There are a lot of developmental traumas. There are a lot of big T traumas like war or rape, or, you know, or little ones like developmental traumas, any stressful situation that we couldn't make sense of it during our childhood or even adulthood. But the constructive way is, how can I make sense of what happened? And it happened to me, not because I was wrong, not because I was doing something bad. And then go through that with curiosity and empathy and change that. And the trauma can be also like, my parents wanted me to be a doctor. My parents wanted me to be a lawyer. There are so many different layers of it. So we can always go back to ourselves that, what do I want? How does this achievement can help me grow to be more myself? There are people, type 4, who can be very sensitive towards their own unpleasant feelings. They can feel it very strongly. They get to the point that like they start talking about their unpleasant feelings in a way that they even themselves feel that they are victims. And that's where we fall in the trap. As soon as, and it comes and goes all the time, like during the day, how many times I feel like, oh my God, I felt like a victim, I have to come out of it. It happens to all of us. It's called a fallback, that like we fall back to the old pattern of, oh, I feel like a victim. And a lot of time it's to get attention, to get love but that's not the right way. Because if I tell myself I'm a victim, if my self-talk and self-criticism is like, look, you just weren't lucky. You just didn't have the best that available to you. And this is it. You just felt like a victim. Then there is no space for standing up for ourselves. There is no space for managing our life, for authoring our own life. We fall on the trap of what other people think, and we want to get their attention. Again, instead of going inward, we go outward. So that's basically like the way that our inner critic talks to us, that like you are a victim. We do have a comment. Thank you. Andrew says, definitely you have spent your life from childhood trying to fit what other people want you to feel, and in turn suppressing your own feelings. Exactly. And how and who you truly are. That voice is always there trying to get out, but our trauma response is simply to shut it back up. As long as we feel insecure, exactly, that's very true. Yes, trauma makes us feel insecure and unsafe when it's not processed. I'm not saying that a trauma can be 100% processed and healed, but it can be healed to such a big extent. And then we can kind of like walk around it. We know when we get the reactions biologically that are trauma response, we can be mindful about it and bring back the wisdom to it, kind of like get ourselves out of that fight, flight, freeze mode and connect to our frontal lobe. It's more work compared to people who didn't have the trauma, which I don't know if there is anybody in this earth that didn't have trauma or intergenerational trauma, but we can definitely do it. And that is very true. As long as we are just kind of like we feel that we are trapped in what other people wanted us and their expectation from our childhood, that inner critic is very powerful. I don't know if I say it correctly, if I say it correctly, I'm sorry about that. She says, can rationally know what to do, but in the moment, it's all emotional response. Very true, very true. We did talk about, we had one workshop for embodying our new patterns. That was like, I think the one before this. But I know that Adrian posted it in YouTube. We know it intellectually. We have a lot of good information about it, but at the moment, because it becomes biological, it's our nerve system who quickly react based on the old perception and based on the old patterns that we have. But then we talked about how we can embody a new pattern, bringing ourselves out of that fight, flight, freeze, and connect to our prefrontal lobe, bring more wisdom and more logic to it. And that, I hope that helps you. That the link is definitely in YouTube, Fairfax Library channel. It's very important that we learn with our brain, but if we don't practice it, if we don't bring it, embody it, yes, at the moment of stress, we can't have the right reaction to it, and all those inner critics remain very powerful. We have more comments. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, it's like a muscle, exactly. And we have been working it out for our entire life while neglecting the other muscles. So we need to both learn to stop giving a strength to the negative muscles while simultaneously using that energy to start building the muscle we have neglected. That's why it's so difficult at first, just like running a marathon. And I love it, but you can't do it. It's a very good analogy. I love it. It is very much like, a kind of like a fitness for our brain. And you know what? It also literally, it's our muscles too. When we feel anxiety, just remember for a second a recent event that gave you anxiety. Where did you sense it in your body? A lot of people sense it in their shoulders, on the neck, on our chest, on our gut. I personally, if I go to freeze, I've sensed it on my arms, like they become numb. Even if we pay more attention, it could be like our smaller muscles, our calf, or sometimes our hands, or sometimes we do something with it when we are nervous, right? We start kind of like doing something with our hands or our fingers, or we shake our legs. Our muscles, our body muscles are actually involved. And then the embodiment means when we try to reflect, when we try to ground ourselves, we try to calm our body as a practice, like going to the gym, a daily or regular practice. And then when we try to calm our mind, then we can do power positions that actually brings more testosterone and oxytocin and even like dopamine, that allow our body to know how it feels when we are under stress, and we to go back to that, like, you know, the open arms, to feel the space around us. So I highly recommend that, if you had any minutes, to go back to that conversation we had. It's in YouTube. It's very important. Whatever we talk about, it won't go anywhere unless we start embodying it. Practicing is very important, and practicing not just with our head, with our entire body. Thank you, Adrienne. Thank you for sending it out. So other types, if this mouse works. Did I miss one again? Yes. So there is this personality type. We all have all of them, but it's dominant in one person compared to another person. In so many cases, we could be very skeptical or even cynical. We feel like we are always at risk. There is always a danger. And when I say always, it doesn't mean every minute of our life, but majority of time, or even like important decisions that we want, we are more skeptical. We are more cynical about it. And that's a lot of fear, that we feel like things can go wrong. To some extent, it's good to have it, but when it goes above and beyond and it like dominates all of our thoughts and paralyzes us from decision making, that's when we want to be curious, like what is actually causing it? Like I want to buy this house and I'm completely paralyzed, and I'm like, oh, I know this and this and this are gonna go wrong. But if I think about it, that inner critic that is telling me everything is going wrong, maybe there is a belief behind it that when I was a child, we lost our house. And that was kind of like traumatizing to me. I couldn't make sense of it when I was a child. Or something happened in my childhood that I didn't know how to understand it. And that is causing this. There are so many patterns from our childhood that when we go through coaching, you find it, and it's just like so liberating that like, oh my God, now I see how everything is connected. There are people who can trouble trusting. I'm just trying to remember this one. Sorry about that. This type 6 is people who constantly ask for other people's approval, and they can't have like they can't have a vision of of themselves. It's always looking at what other people do and trying to follow that. And again, when I say always, in like so many cases, not always, but it is like a dominant part of the personality for the person. And it's always like feeling anxious. Am I doing it right? Am I following it right? Am I is this correct? But because we forget to go inward and we forget to use our own authority, and we are constantly just grabbing it from others rather than being inspired, we are just following others or mimicking others. And there is always anxiety. There is always the self-talk in us, the inner critic that, is this right? Am I doing it right? What if I'm not approved by others? What if I'm not doing right? Because that self-authority is not there. So the curiosity and empathy can come here and ask, and we can ask, what is that self-authority that I'm missing? Why am I following other people? Why do I feel like I cannot have my own thoughts and create and design my own pattern? But again, with curiosity and empathy and self-compassion, self-empathy. There are people, this is type 7, who are constantly planning for something fun. And the reason is they don't want to miss out. There is so many opportunities in this world and I want to have it all. But we can't have it all. We have to learn how to prioritize. But basically, when we get to that style of constantly trying to have fun, is because we are escaping from something and we are trying to shut down the inner critic. But if we really pay attention to it, if we really feel mindful about it, we do have that anxiety that is covered by that excitement of the next one, You know, sometimes we do that, right? We are coming back from a trip and we are planning another trip. But, well, can I just get home, rest, get back to my routine and see what is wrong with my routine that I want to constantly get out of it. So curiosity and empathy, again, can help us here to see what is it that I'm escaping from? What needs to change? What is it that I don't want to feel? It's very important to ask our questions from ourselves. Or in the case of when we see these patterns in other people, we can ask that, right? Our self-talk is like, oh, this person is always having fun, but is she or is he? And is there anything that she's escaping from? You know, especially if it's a loved one that might impact, like her or his behavior can impact your life directly. You can be curious about the behavior and all of that. I just remember to say that, but all of these patterns. There is type 8 that is basically very, very straightforward. They want to take control of things because they think they know better than everybody else. And yes, that's true. Maybe in some of this stuff we know better than other people, but we can teach other people, we can coach other people, we can empower other people. But if we think that, oh, I am the one who knows, they don't know what they are doing, and I'm going to cross their boundaries and force them to do something. A lot of us parents can actually fall in that trap because we think that our children don't know about it, or even about, like, you know, siblings or friends or our life partner. It can happen in so many ways. And the inner critic is towards other people. They don't know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing. So they have to listen to me. But it becomes rigid and there is no flexibility in it. So we cross people's boundary. Again, with curiosity and empathy, we can say, what is it that they actually need? How can I help them? How can I empower other people? instead of just feeling that I figured it out. And then type 9, the last type in this model, is people who are trying to see all the positivity in any event and basically suppress the negativity of it or unpleasantness of it. We call it toxic positivity because if we ignore the unpleasant part of it, and if we are not curious about what happened, then we definitely get to really wrong decisions about it, because we are kind of like dismissing a very big part of an event. Any person, any event, we all have flaws and also pleasant traits. It all comes together, and if we ignore and completely suppress the flaws or unpleasantness of a person or event, we are just missing a very big part of the picture. So if we find ourselves with our inner talk that's constantly is justifying someone, oh no, he said he loves me, or oh no, she did say that she wants to go to this with me, but constantly justifying rather than getting to the point that like, well, I don't know, maybe there is more to it that I have to think about. It sounds scary and painful, but it definitely, if you do it from the authority style, you can definitely find the solution for it, because you get yourself a chance to see your own power. So it's very important not to fall in the trap of toxic positivity. Constructive, yes, but constantly being positive, it can become toxic. And now we get to the point that, okay, how can we disengage ourselves from all these types of different self-talks that we have, the unpleasant ones? But the very first step for it is becoming mindful about it, recognizing it, that, oh yeah, I see that you're there, I hear you, you are there. And what are you? How can I name you? You know, if you go back to all those 9 different types of self-talks, what category it might fall under? What am I telling myself? And then the very important next step is kind of like trying to ground ourselves, our entire selves, not just our mind, our entire selves. And this practice, centering practice, is very quick and very helpful. It's part of all different martial arts, and it's been around for thousands of years. So in a very few seconds, you can, even if you like, you can practice it now. Just align your neck, your back, and your hip, whether you are sitting or you are standing up. Have a couple of deep breaths and focus on your breath. Inhale, exhale. And then try to imagine the space around you, the space that you have, and include other people in it, all of it together. Feel the space. And if you feel a little more connected to life, then you can think about, okay, what am I really hearing? What are the feelings that are triggered? What are the body sensations? Do like a quick body scan, kind of like going through your head, through your body organs, all the way down to your feet, and feel like, what am I sensing? Is there any part that is triggered? The dominant parts are our chest, our shoulders, our neck, our gut, but there is a lot more that can be triggered, a lot of different muscles. A lot of time we don't even notice, but our muscles around our eyes can be very contracted when we are stressed. So try to recognize them and try to see if you can relax those muscles. And then go to more details. What is it? What is the inner critic that I'm hearing? Even if you want to write it down, if you want to journal about it, and see like what is your reaction towards it, based on the feelings that you are, the emotions that you are feeling, based on the body sensation. You know, did you lose it? Did you yell at someone, or did you start crying uncontrollably? Crying is a very good thing. I'm not saying it's bad. It's very healthy. But when it happens constantly and uncontrollably, then we have to really think about what's going on inside. So, and what are the judgments that I'm making here? These all go hand in hand, and if you can do journaling, it can be very helpful. And then once you've figured it out a little bit, once you have a little bit more clear picture of your inner talks and your body sensations and your feelings and everything, see if you can communicate with that inner critic in all different ways. Like, I have suggestions here. You can talk to your inner critic with humor. You can talk to, and these are proved ways to really communicate with your inner critic. You can say, you know, I'm an adult. I don't need your advice. You can talk back to it like, no, you can't cross my boundaries now. This is me driving. So see like how would it work for you to communicate with your inner voice and assertively tell your inner voice that you got it. I don't need you now. Just sit beside me. I don't want you to drive. And then feel if you feel more of your authority, more of your power, a strength comes out. Do you feel a little relieved? If not, maybe you should go back to having a clear picture of your inner voice and what type of it is and how do you want to talk back to it. So repeat these steps and see like how it comes out, you know, how it shows up. And then when you feel a little bit more comfortable with it, that's when your nerve system has calmed down. That's when you are mostly out of your fight, flight, freeze mode, and you can communicate through all the nerves that you have here, vagus nerve especially, to your prefrontal lobe, and you actually kick out your logic system to come and dance with your emotional system in a beautiful way that brings out the wisdom out of us. This is especially when you feel triggered. If you want to make a log, that would be very helpful. And reflect on it, have like some self-reflection, journaling. It could be very helpful. I actually have suggested it at the end that journaling on this can be very helpful. I understand that you might not be able to do it a few times per day, but even one time per day can bring up, it can go a long way. It can slowly help you to embody this practice and modify your inner voice and embody it throughout your entire body with this practice regularly, even if it's not every day, just regularly for a while. After 2 or 3 months, you'll see a big difference. And if you go back to your notes, if you take notes and if you go back to your notes, you'll see how much more strength you feel and how much more manageable your inner critic is. Unless there are unprocessed traumas, and if you still didn't feel any improvement, that's when I highly recommend to reach out to therapists. Because if there are traumas, then a coach cannot help you. If there are traumas that are on your way to make this move, then see maybe there are unprocessed traumas that you have to address. And that's when a therapist can really be very helpful to make sense of the trauma. And this is a little practice that I suggest, I invite you to do. It's kind of like being mindful about one little daily ritual. It can be like brushing your teeth, but just try to be mindful about it. And then our thoughts come and go, right? It's just the nature of our brain. But be mindful of what thoughts come in, what inner critics come in, what self-talk come in, and what are they saying? Try to communicate with it. And if you do this also for a while, you see that like a lot more awareness and mindfulness come in. That you know, even recognizing your inner talk, especially if it's unpleasant, it's like a huge step. And when you recognize it, there is more possibility for you to use your inner strength to bring that constructive structure to it. So hopefully it helps. It can be brushing your teeth, it can be driving, it can be taking a shower, or even like if you have a few dishes that you wash, you know, a few minutes ritual. But just try to be mindful to see what comes out and how you can name it, how you can communicate with it, and then see what happens. And the other one that I was recommending is journaling. If you go through those disengaging steps and take notes, then over time you can see what happens, and hopefully you can see the progress and the unfolding of your own potential. And I always end with this. This is how we grow. Adult development is what my coaching is focused on, based on the developmental stage theory. What happens is we want to recognize our old patterns that are limiting us. And then when we accept that we have that, when I accept that there is this old pattern, that I fall to people pleasing when I'm under stress in a certain place. When I accept it, then I can think about, okay, how can I, what can I do to change this pattern? What are the limitations that is bringing to my life, and what is the freedom, liberation that I want to gain, and how, and with what new pattern I can bring that new liberation to my life. It looks very neat and nice. You see it here, but it's a very messy process. It's not a linear process. You move 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. That's the nature of the process. The whole evolution is like that. And we are all in this together. So if you felt that's something that I could help you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you have any questions, please email me. These are my contact information. If it comes up again, it jumped out. My contact information is here. Email is definitely, here, shabnamcurtis@gmail.com. Email is definitely the best way. And I would love to hear from you if you have any questions or thoughts. And at this moment, I would love to hear from other people who are actually attending now. Do the resources slide. Yes, definitely. We do share the slides. Adrian is always kind to send the slides. These are the books that I recommend for especially Soul Without Shame. It was a life-changing book for me personally. It comes with a lot of practices. And it solely talks about inner critics. It's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful work of practice for this. Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Shamin is a very good book. I recommend it. I learned a lot from it, but it's not definitely it's not necessarily the model that I use, but it does bring a lot of awareness. He also has a TED Talk if you don't have time to read the book. And then the Enneagram Institute, we will have a workshop for this, for Enneagram. But if you go to Enneagram Institute and if you feel like you're curious about your personality type, it offers a lot of good information. It does offer a test for you to find your personality, your dominant personality type and the wings. You can take the test, but it's also more fun with having the curiosity and finding your dominant type through reading different types and see which one you connect more. And I want to say it again, we have all 9 types. It's just like there are a couple of types that are dominant in us, but it helps us not only to understand ourselves, also understand other people. What are their sources of fear or motivation, and it really definitely brings us closer to ourselves. But yes, Adrienne is always kind to share their slides.
Yes, I will. And I'll share the link also when it's available.
Thank you. Now we do have time, actually. I'm surprised that I didn't talk more, but any thoughts, anything you would like to share with us? I would like to hear from you. Or if you feel more comfortable sharing it in the chat.
Just a quick question, I guess, for the Reston Library. I just tried to look up the Soul Without Shame, and I'm not finding you having a copy of it.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me see.
Thank you.
Let me see what I can find.
Thank you very much. Thank you for attending, joining us, and all the best for you.
Sure. And I'll look a little bit more for Soul Without Shame, and I'll in my email I'll include whatever I find.
Oh, no problem. No, I was just Pam actually messaged and I was just answering her.
Oh, okay. I just don't want to make people wait while I look.
And you too, Andrew, and everybody. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming, and thanks so much, Shabnam. As always, I come away from your programs always feeling a little bit stronger.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. Thank you. You're always kind.
Okay. All right. I'll send out the slides and the link when it's available.
I'll send you the slides tonight.
Okay. Yeah. I'm looking forward to next month.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.